Hey, so I wanted to do a quick video on something that kind of popped into my head. Um, Basically on the binary options for the universe, as far as it being infinite or finite, or created, or no beginning, no end. And I've had this debate with other people who said that there should be a third option of a beginning and no end. But I digress. Um, Basically, the idea is you either have a situation where you got something from nothing, or everything is causal. Um, the Big Bang was caused by a preceding event, and for that, you have to accept some sort of perpetual motion. In order to have perpetual motion, you have to have basically a violation of the law of physics. So you run into a wall. As you can see, you get two basically impossible options: something from nothing, or a machine that runs forever. Um, if there was no beginning, that's a infinite situation. So what my solution is to say that the mechanism for perpetual motion is actually the interplay between energy and matter and time and space. So time and space being one and the same, and energy and matter being one and the same. And when the two interact, we get gravity, right? But where does gravity come from? So they discovered the God particle, or I forget what else it's called, the Higgs boson. And supposedly that particle is the particle associated with a gravitational wave, and that proves something. I'm not quite sure. Every wave has an associated particle. Or I'm not quite sure exactly what the celebration was about, but it was significant in some regard. The cool thing that I think is that the possibility of the gravitron, the Higgs boson, and the interplay in gravity itself, and the interplay between energy and matter and time and space, um, being connected in the sense that as time and space move through and past energy matter, there's a turbulence created. It's not a linear flow of time space. Time space ripples and like flows like water, flowing across the rock of energy matter. And in that turbulence, you have energy loss, and energy loss coming from the vacuum of time space is gravity. And I think that that's really a cool possibility as the mechanism for perpetual motion in a steady state universe. Right, so that's cool. And we were talking before about the lower dimension of like a mathematical dimension that governs the shape of everything that gives rise to life. I was talking about it in another video as far as why a sphere is a sphere and why that's important. As far as how that, you know, functions as a shape as opposed to just being a random shape. And I was reading an article a while ago. It was actually a few years ago, but I think that there might be a dimension that either we have access to, the being a mathematical, or a further, even lower dimension that is a singularity. And the reason I think that is the article I was reading was about quantum communication and quantum radar. And basically, what it was saying was that the Chinese had developed a satellite system that could communicate um, globally, instantaneously, and without any possibility of um, tracing or interception. So it was the idea was that they could plant like a listening device and know real time, real information, and we wouldn't know what they knew, whatever. Not we, whatever, not associated with any government associated with that. God, no. But we as like America would not know that, like we wouldn't be able to listen with all the Edward Snowden stuff. So that was cool, but like what's cooler about it was like how, and it's through the entangled particles. So initially, when people read like the double slit experiment, and it was like proof that things either move faster than life or things that were connected at a distance through time that somehow weren't supposed to be based on our understanding of time and space. And what they've figured out how to do eventually is to split those particles and use the fact that they're entangled to communicate back and forth. And they've also developed a radar system that can penetrate, all of the universe with basically divided photons or whatever. And the only I don't really understand the technology, to be honest with you. I just think it's cool that it's basically tapping into a singularity dimension. And the only reason I think that's cool is because in my mind, that's the only possibility that really makes sense, is that there is a dimension so small that it collapses into basically a singularity, like the center of a black hole, except it's everywhere and nowhere all at once, all around us, interconnecting everything, and at the same time, like, only there at the most tiny level. It's nothingness everywhere. It's wild. But in my mind, that's the only kind of theory that makes sense for it to work. Besides that, like, it was kind of, in my understanding, the science experiment was a bit of a parlor trick. But now that it's been at least publicly developed by the Chinese, it's completely made us vulnerable. And this is another thing that's cool. So with this technology, you need to understand time and space as it actually is, and we don't. We live in a world of synchronized clocks, but in reality, time is a feature of space. Real time isn't linear. Okay, it's a feature of spatial reality. So I exist in this time, and you exist in that time, and that time is attached to that space, and that space is moving through, the universe, on a rock or through space. So the reason we experience time in one direction, like all together, one of us isn't aging while the other is growing old relative to each other, in my mind. Einstein might disagree, I don't know. I honestly don't know. But this is how it works in my mind, is because we are on a rock, and relative to, some other rock, we're hurtling all together now, on a rock circling a sun, circling the center of the Milky Way, circling, etc. So because of that, we experience time together, and because we choose to have synchronized clocks, we kind of agree. But it's a function of mass hypnosis. It's probably like the first real success story on that, besides maybe organized religion. But it might be the first like really functional one. Is synchronized time, and so we all kind of have the same account for hour. Because that's not really reality. Reality is I'm in my time, you're in your time, we're all on a rock flying around the sun, that's really flying through time itself. And when we communicate via quantum communication, what we're actually doing is communicating through time. So two distances that are far apart are actually separated by time. So when you communicate instantaneously into a different time, you are communicating backwards, forwards, into time. And this could provide an advantage in the stock market. I'm not kidding, this could provide like wire transfers of digital information when you get into bitcoins and stuff like that exceed our understanding of time, and that's with real communication technology that exists today. And I was actually thinking, because this technology is real, and it's not like it's just going to be weaponized against an ignorant public. It's going to serve a function at some point. It's actually like a cell phone antenna. So instead of having like all these like cell phone towers all over the place, you have an entangled particle on a chip in your phone, and your chip communicates with this entangled particle that goes back to like a major hub station where you have like 2 or 3 in the world. You wouldn't need that many, and like literally trafficking all the cell phone data in the world through those major hubs, because the quantum entanglement would provide for like instant global communication. You wouldn't require all these like relay stations. You could have like major central hubs handling the data flow, but it would mess people's minds up because the data would be going too fast. But anyway, that's the story for today. I'm going to apparently play with my dog. She's all about it right now. All right, guys. Have a Merry Christmas. Later.